Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to today's 1500 point Tempest of War battle report between the firstborn sons of Guilliman and the Tyranids of High Fleet Kraken. In today's battle, we are going old school with the Ultramarines. We are going all firstborn for today's army, so way back in 7th and previous editions, just rocking out the firstborn, not a Primaris Marine or Primaris vehicle in sight. So it is going to shape up to be a quite classic looking matchup between the Marines and the Tyranids. Our Tempest of War game that we pulled from the cards has Dawn of War deployment. Our primary mission is claim the battlefield. So we're going to have the optional claim objective action that we can do. And we also have the special mission rule of supply lines, so we need to make sure that we keep hold of the objective marker in our own deployment zones. Speaking of objectives and deployment zones, the Tyranids are deployed on this side. Their home objective is currently being held down by their warriors. Then across no man's land, we have one dead center in the crater. This one hiding out behind this tall set of buildings. And then finally in no man's land, this objective in this large footprint of a ruin. And then finally for the Ultramarines, a squad of tactical and devastator squads are holding down the fort. All of the terrain is gonna be what you see is what you get. So craters are craters, crates are crates, ruins are ruins. Everything should be 5 inches or taller, so try to set it up so we don't have a ton of good sight lines, especially for the Ultramarines, so they will have to pick and choose their targets. So with the mission objectives and terrain gone over, let's get into the armies. We are still choosing to use the Warzone Knockman rule, so starting with the 12 CP, only getting it on our own command phase, and we are still using the battalion detachment for both of the armies. Warzone Arcs of Omen has come out and is on its way to me, but has not arrived yet, so this will probably be the last one before we start doing some Arcs of Omen content. In our High Fleet Kraken, we have 3 Warlord or 3 HQ slots, a Broodlord with Synaptic Lure, following behind his 9-man squad of Genestealers. We have a Neurothrope with Catalyst and Psychic Scream. Then for our third and final HQ over here, we have a Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip, Bone Sword, and his, what is that gun? I can never tell by looking at it. Not a Devourer, but I believe that is a Flesh Boar on the model, but I will check in Battlescribe once I get to shoot it. For troops, we have 3 20-man squads of Gaunts. We have a 20-man squad of Termagants, 20-man squad of Termagants, and 20-man squad of Hormagaunts over here on the flank, as well as a 3-man squad of warriors on the objective, with a Venom Cannon, Lash Whip Bone Swords, and Scything Talons on the 2 non-Venom Cannon units. In Elites, we've got a 5-man of Zonethropes with Onslaught, as well as the 9 Genestealers, as I already showed you, and waiting underground is a 3-man squad of Raveners. So that is the forces of High Fleet Kraken, and we have taken their generic adaptation, so D3 plus 3 on advances instead of a D6. And then let's get into the Sons of Guilliman. busting out my collection of Firstborn Marines for the very first time in a lot of these models cases. We have a battalion of Ultramarines led by a captain in Terminator armor. He's going to have the Imperial sword and the burning blade to help him and his 5-man squad of Stormbolter Power Fist Terminators. Our second HQ will be our Jump Pack Chaplain, taking Litany of Hate and Exhortation of Rage, and following up a 10-man squad of Assault Marines with a Flamer and Bolt Pistol Chainsword on everybody else. Filling out our troop slots are 3 tactical squads. 2 are identical on the flanks, with a plasma gun and missile launcher in each. So 1 on the home field objective, 1 in this crater, ready to advance up the field and claim this no man's land objective. And then finally, in a Razorback transport, we have a 5-man squad with a single plasma gun, ready to ride up their armored transport up the field. In Elites, we have a Dreadnought with the Dreadnought Fist with Flamer and a las cannon. The 5-man Terminator squad, as previously stated, is in the Teleportarium with the captain. For fast attack, we have the Assault Marines going together with their chaplain. We also have a Land Speeder Typhoon with Heavy Bolter and the missile, and a Land Speeder Tornado over here with a Heavy Bolter and Assault Cannon. And I frankly did not know that they are called Land Speeder Tornadoes when they are equipped like this, but you'll learn something new when you take models for the first time in probably the entire edition. And then finally, in heavy support, we have a 5-man squad of Devastators with 2 las cannons, 2 plasma cannons, an Armorium Cherub, and the leader in the front, for a grand total of 1,500 points for the Ultramarines facing off against the Tyranids. And that's going to do it for the armies and everything that we need to do before the game starts. So we'll roll off our first turn. Red die is going to be the Tyranids, blue die is going to be the Ultramarines. And it will be Ultramarines turn 1 as we start the game. Starting the game with Ultramarines in turn 1, we have pulled the following for our first round of cards: Extend Battle Lines, Overwhelming Firepower, and Blood and Guts, after spending our Battle Round CP to get rid of Deployed Teleport Homer. We were also able to chant Exhortation of Rage and put it on to the Assault Marines with jump packs from the Chaplain. Nothing else to do in the command phase, so we are ready to get moving, and it looks like the secondaries want us to kill, 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 and put the pedal to the metal. So we will come back to you after movement as we start shooting with the Ultramarines. Here we are after the movement phase. We are gonna do the claim objective action here on this one with the Tactical Marine after they advanced up to claim it for the Imperium. The Dreadnought has moved up behind them with the Land Speeder Typhoon and the Razorback rushing towards the middle to claim the center. The Assault Marines advanced up to kind of come onto this side of the battlefield while the second land speeder has moved on up to get clear line of sight into the Gene Stealers. And finally, the Tactical Squad and Devastators on the home field objective did not move. For the Tyranid side, we also have the Synaptic Imperative of Predatory Guile. So that is giving everybody within Synapse light cover, and then heavy cover if they're already receiving light cover. So that will try to get them to be a little bit harder to hit as we move into the shooting phase. We are going to start with the Land Speeder Typhoon, getting everything that it's got into the 20-man squad of Termagants that are currently shielding the Warlord Neurothrope. Just trying to choose one of the units to focus down, since we do have overwhelming firepower. So we are going to use the frag missile option on the Typhoon missile launchers to get 12 shots, hitting on 3s. And then Strength 4 will be wounding on 3s. For 5 wounds at AP -1, thanks to being in Devastator Doctrine, but that -1 will be offset by the fact that they are treated as light cover, so we're going to still be on our 5-up saves. So make 2, fail 3. That is going to be 3 gaunts down. Then we are going to move on to the Heavy Bolter. 3 shots. Only 1 hit, wounding on a 3. No wound there, so a little lackluster shooting from the Typhoon. Next up, we're going to move right on to the Razorback while I'm in kind of the center area of the battlefield. We are going to go with the Las Cannon into the Zonethropes. And then the Storm Bolter is going to go into the same squad of Termagants. Starting with the Twin Las Cannon, hitting on 3s, wounding both times. And then Strength 9, wounding both times. -3, but onto their invuln saves. 4 up. That'll be a pass and a fail. And I think the Tyranids will try to use the CP reroll there and pass both of them for the cost of 1 CP. The Storm Bolter from the Razorback was also able to kill 1 more of the Termagants off of the field. Next up, we're going to move on to the shooting from the Dreadnought. His twin las cannon's going to go into the Zonethrope, try to take 1 or 2 of them out again. Hitting on 3s, and then wounding on 3s will be 2 misses, and we will spend a reroll there to get 1 wound. Against the 4-up save of the Zonethrope. Will not make it. And then finally, d6 damage for 3 damage onto one of the Zonethropes from the Dreadnought will bring 1 down to 1 wound remaining. Moving on to this flank where the last of the shooting is, we are going to start with the Devastators first, just to make sure that I don't kill them out of range. If the Land Speeder up front was particularly lucky, we're going to put the Signum on one of the Plasma Cannon Marines, and then everything that they've got is going to go into the Gene Stealers. So this will be the Plasma Gunner with his 2-up ballistic skill, so 2 shots from him, and then the Plasma Gunner with a 3-up will also have 2 shots. So the blue will hit on 2s, Greens will hit on 3s, not overcharging either of them, thankfully. And then Strength 7 into Gene Stealers will wound on 3s. All of those will wound, and then it is going to go on to the Gene Stealers save of... It'll be a 5-up invuln against shooting, so 5-ups. Make 2, fail 1 of them. And then we'll move on to the 2 las cannons. Hitting once, wounding once, 5-up or another Gene Stealer is dead. That'll be a second Gene Stealer taken out. And our final shots are going to go from the Land Speeder Tornado into the remaining Gene Stealers. Starting off with the Assault Cannon, heavy 6, hitting on 3s. And wounding on 3s. Full hit of wounds, or full round of wounds on their 5-ups. Make 1, fail 3, that's going to be 3 more. And then finally the heavy bolter for the last guns to reach out. Full round of hits. Only 1 wound on his 5-up. Not making it, so that will be 4 more of the Gene Stealers down. So at the end of turn 1 for the Ultramarines, here's how we're looking. We're able to take the majority of the Gene Stealers off, so they are hopefully effectively neutered for the turn, or for the game. We were able to shave a little bit off of this Termagant squad, but other than that, just trying to advance up and score. For our score, we did get Extend Battle Lines. We're working on Overwhelming Firepower. Blood and Guts, I don't think is going to happen, so we're going to throw that one away. So the score will be 5 on secondary as we go into turn 1 for the Tyranids. In the command phase for Tyranids turn 1, we are still under the synaptic imperative of Predatory Guile. We have gone out with all of the command buffs. The Broodlord has given his buff to the 3 remaining Gene Stealers, although I think they are not going to be using it. The Zoanthrope, or the Neurothrope, has given the Zoanthropes 3d6 on their Psychic, and the Tyranid Prime has given his reroll wounds of 1 to the Gaunts in the middle. While we did have to spend our CDP to get rid of Overwhelming Firepower, we end up with Attempting Target, Bring It Down, and Raise Banner. So we got a Raise Banner on one of our No Man Land objectives, and we have to bring the Razorback down and grab the Tempting Target of this one back here that the Tactical Marines are firmly in control of. So with that, we are ready to advance up the board and hopefully start applying some pressure to the Ultramarines with the remaining forces of the Hive Mind. As we go through movement, we'll come back to you in Psychic for the Tyranids turn 1. Here we are after movement, and the swarms have moved on up. The Termagants over here, they're still at their full strength, used Opportunistic Advance to advance 8 inches up and not take the penalty for shooting assault weapons, while Bounding Advance was used on to these Hormagaunts to try to curl around and take the objective off of this tactical squad. In the backfield, the Warriors and the Prime shuffled around a little bit, keeping the Venom Cannon 1 still, while the Broodlord is making to join up with the Termagant squads, and the 3 remaining Gene Stealers have moved forward to do Raise the Banner, to get some use out of them before they are done. So they will complete the action of Raise Banner. They're not going to do anything else, so they'll get those 5 points for the Tyranids. Bring it down. We're going to try to smite this Razorback off the board, and then tempting target we might just be able to get if the Hormagaunts are able to clear the Tactical Marines off of the objective. But with the Psychic phase starting off, we are going to get started with the Brain Bugs. We're going to start off with their 3d6 plus 5 smite into the Razorback. Yes, just double checking. It is the cast that I get the full +5 for, but it's only +3 on the damage. And so we will drop the 1, getting 4 +5 is 9. No way to do anything better there. So we are going to do D3 +3 onto the Razorback for minimum. So 4 points of damage there. Next up, we're going to move on to the Neurothrope with his smite and his other cast. Just checking ranges, it looks like we are going to need the Neurothrope to try to throttle out as much damage as possible. So starting off with smite, that will be a 5, needing a 6, because this is our second smite of the turn. But with Psychic Nose, that is literally just enough to get it off. So that will be 2 more wounds taken onto the Razorback. And then for his last power, he is going to go with, yes, I think Synaptic. Psychic Scream is still better. So we are going to go Psychic Scream, getting a 6, 7. So that'll be another D3. Another 1 mortal wound off of the tank. Doesn't matter about losing the ability to cast thanks to Psychic Scream. And I'm going to use Power of the Hive Mind to allow the Neurothrope to also do his Catalyst. On a 4, 5, that will not do it. So unfortunately, that is not going to be enough to get Catalyst off. In for a penny, in for a pound, I guess. So going down to 6 CP, or we roll that into a 10. And I will get Catalyst off onto, we'll go Catalyst onto the full squad of Termagants up front. And then finally, the last power will be the smite from the Broodlord. He's just a hair closer to the Assault Marines, which is why I was deciding whether or not the Neurothrope needed to do offense or defense powers. But on a 7, on a 9, he will do D3 to the Assault Marines. So that'll be 1 Assault Marine taken down as we wrap up the Psychic phase. We're going to start the shooting phase, and we are going to get started with the 1 anti-tank weapon, which is the Venom Cannon from this Tyranid Warrior, going into the Razorback, just trying to see if we can take it down before the small shots go into it. So it is going to be D3 shots for 2 shots. On, just double checking the BS of Warriors, they are BS 3, so 2 hits. Strength 8 into the Razorback. Those would both be wounds, but I'm going to kind of rewind time for a quick second, and I'm going to use Smokescreen on the Razorback just to try to save it. So that would save 1 hit. So since both hit and wounds, that'll take it from 2 wounds going through to 1. At the -3 will take us up to our 6-up armor save. And I do in fact make it with the 6-up armor. Now we're going to go with the 20-man squad of Termagants into the Razorback. So this is going to be on 5s thanks to -1 to hit. So we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ooh, still a very, very good roll to hit. And then 5s re-rolling 1s to wound, thanks to the Tyranid Prime giving us his Synaptive Imperative. There'll be 2 wounds at -1, go into a 4-up. Make 1, fail 1. So that will be the Razorback taken down to 2 wounds. And we'll do the same thing, rinse and repeat, with the second squad of Termagants. This time getting 5 wounds through at AP -1. We'll take 1, 2, 3 wounds down, and even if we re-rolled that for the Marines, that would be enough to take it down. So that is going to be bring it down for the Tyranids, and the Razorback does not explode. Thankfully, that Termagant squad was the last bit of shooting for the Tyranids, and now we are ready to get going into the charge phase. We're going to start off with the full-man squad with Catalyst going into the 5 Tactical Marines that got out of their Razorback, but 2 CP being spent for the Ultramarines for defensive focus to allow the Typhoon to overwatch as if it were the subject of the charge instead of the 5-man tactical squad. We're going to rewind time there yet again for the game. The Termagants are not able to charge into combat with the Tactical Marines as they had the not bounding advance, opportunistic advance played on them. So that allows them to fire with no penalty, but that still does not let them charge after advancing. So 2 CP refunded to the Ultramarines. However, here, the Hormigons are going to charge into the 10-man tactical squad, and here is where we are going to spend 1 CP to overwatch with all of them. 4 of the Hormigons were killed in Overwatch. However, a 5-inch charge was enough to get them in, and then after the 9-inch pile-in that Hormigons can do thanks to their bounding leap rule, here is how we're looking. That is going to be 16 times 3, 48 attacks, as I try to do the math in my head, going against the tactical squad in the only combat of the round. After all was said and done, we have 13 wounds at -1 going into the Tactical Marines. Oop, drop the die. Try that one again. 13 4-up saves. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wounds going through. That is going to be 2.5 Marines taken off the board. Unfortunately, I did have to pull the Sergeant for staying on the objective purposes, but that's still going to be 16 attacks from Shock Assault going into the Gaunts, hitting on 3s, and then wounding on 3s. So that will be 3, 5, 8 wounds against their 5-up save. Makes a good chunk of them, but that is going to be 5 of the Gaunts taken off of the board. At the end of the turn, the Hormagaunts did fail morale, but only the original one failed. None other of the Gaunts ran away, and that is going to put us on a total of 9 bodies controlling the objective to the Ultramarines 8. That is going to mean that not only do we take away the claimed objective, we also get the full 15 for our secondaries, probably at the cost of the squad, but even so, that is a pretty good get. So we have taken the Razorback out. We've, for now, taken this midfield objective, and we did raise a banner here on our No Man's Land objective with 3 remaining Gene Stealers. So that will be 15-5 at the end of round 1 in favor of the Tyranids as we move into round 2 and the Tactical Doctrine. Here we are in turn 2 for the Ultramarines as we switch on over to the Tactical Doctrine. We only control the 1 home field objective, so we will get the 5 points and 2 points for the home objective being claimed, bringing us up to a total of 12 victory points. Our secondaries are Hold the Line, Grind Them Down, and Overwhelming Firepower, using new orders to ditch area denial. So we need to hold on to our deployment zone and start killing, preferably with shooting. Also, in the command phase, we got off Exhortation of Rage yet again with the Assault Squad, and 1 CP spent, bringing us down to 8 for Wisdom of the Ancients on the Dreadnought. And I'm going to choose Rites of Battle, so re-rolling our hits of 1 in a bubble around him. So with that, we are going to get on to the movement phase as we bring in the captain and his Terminator squad from Deep Strike and try to retake the board. Here we are as we begin the shooting phase. This now 8-man squad of Tactical Marines has fallen back from the Hormagaunts, backed up by the Dreadnought. The Landspeeder Typhoon has also moved on up to get some line of sight towards the middle, and the Warriors on the Tyranids home field objective. 5-man just simply moved up there 4 inches through the crater into range of the objective. The 10 Assault Marines, including the Chaplain, have moved forward to threaten the center of the board, while back here the Tactical and Devastator squads have stayed still to make sure that we stay hold of our home field objective, while the Storm Speeder Tornado has moved on forward to hopefully take care of the last remaining Gene Stealers and possibly act as a distraction for the Broodlord in the Tyranids turn 2. The Synaptic Imperative that I'm going to choose, I just need to flip the card over to remind myself, is going to be Warp Shielding, so trying to make everybody a little bit more resilient as we go into what is probably going to be the most severe shooting phase for the Ultramarines. We've also got the Terminators and Terminator Captain back here, equally in range of the Warriors Prime and the Gaunts to see what we can threaten with charge in turn 2. We are actually going to start with the Devastators, split firing a little bit with their 2 different types of heavy guns. The Plasma Cannons are going to reach out and see if we can remove the 3 Gene Stealers, while the 2 Las Cannons are going to zip across the table into the Warrior Squad. I'm also going to spend the Signum on one of the Las Cannons. The red die will be hitting on a 2. White die will be hitting on a 3. So both of those will hit. Wounding on 3s. Both of those will wound. And then we are going to be on our 5-up invuln saves. Make neither of those. So we have to get through 3 wounds each for the warriors. So first will be 6 damage, and then 1 damage on to the warriors. We will let that slide, so 1 warrior down and 1 warrior left on 2 wounds. As we then go into the plasma cannon for the other 2 devastators, we are not going to overcharge. So 2d3 for 5 shots. For 5 shots for the plasma cannon on 3s. And 3s again. So if we get all 3 of these through the 5-up invuln, that is 1 tally on grind them down, and on overwhelming firepower, not quite. So 2 dead and 1 remains. Just looking at my options, I am going to use the Armorium Cherub on the Signumed Las Cannon to go ahead and try to take a shot at the Tyranid Prime now that he is no longer character blocked. So hitting on a 2, wounding on a 3, and here is where I will try to use my CP reroll. So that is going to be a 5-up save for the Prime. Does not make it. And we'll try to reroll that for the Tyranids, so spend the CP for them. No luck. So on a 6, this snipes off the Tyranid Prime. Otherwise, it just deals a good chunk of damage to him, hopefully. Ooh, 5 damage, so he is left on 1 wound remaining. Next up for shooting, everything from this squad of infantry is going to go into the Gene Stealer. Just to save myself a little bit of time, I'm sure that we will be able to take off 1 single Gene Stealer with a full squad of Tactical Marines. So that'll get us tally on overwhelming firepower and grind them down. Then we will go over to the Land Speeder Tornado, and we are going to get started trying to whittle down this squad of Termagants. So, starting off with the Assault Cannon from the Tornado into them on 3s. So, 5 hits. And then wounding on 2s. 5 wounds at their 5-up Warp Shielding save. Well, good saves on them. Only bring 2 of them down. And then the Heavy Bolter. All hit, all wound, and take another 2 off the field. Next up from the center of the board is going to be the Land Speeder Typhoon, firing everything that he's got into the now 12-man squad of Termagants, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and absolutely no 1s to reroll. But plenty of 2s, so which this gave me Chapter Master and not just Captain Rerolls. So Strength 4 from the Frag Missiles, wounding on 3s, will be 5 wounds at the 5-up save, 4 more down, so that'll be 4 taken there. Next up, our Heavy Bolter into them as well. Totally not meeting the Captain rerolls from the Ancient. Will kill another 3. So 7 Gaunts taken off of the field from that 1 Typhoon. And hopefully, finally, for the now 5-man squad of Gaunts, we are going to direct everything that can see from the Assault Marines into that squad, including the Flamer Shot. Unfortunately for the Ultramarines, 2 of the Gaunts are still standing. So we are going to finish these chunk of shooting in the middle with the 5-man tactical squad going everything except the plasma gun into the gaunts, and then the plasma gunner is going to overcharge and fire into the warriors. So we are going to have 3 bolt guns, rapid firing, and then for 2 wounds going through, so 5 ups. We'll save 1, fail 1. Then the pistol finally will miss. So that is going to be 1 of the gaunts still left on the field. Then finally the plasma gunner will have a 1 and a 6. So he will, unfortunately, slay himself, but let's see if he takes a warrior out. He just might, if that's not a 5 up. Alright, so we trade 1 tactical marine for a Tyranid warrior. And our shooting will continue over here from the Ultramarines. The tactical squad is going to go full hog into the Hormagaunts right over here, including blast with the crack missile, or the frag missile rather, into this squad before the flamer of the dreadnought tries to take the rest out. And we do not need to overcharge, so we will not risk it for the plasma gunner. And I'll be right back after resolving this unit's shooting. Only 3 of the Hormagaunts have remained standing after the tactical squad shot into them. Now, finally, we will go on to the Dreadnought. His flamer is going to try to take out the rest of the Hormagaunt squad, while his double las cannons are going to reach out and try to take down at least 1 of the Zoanthropes. So we are going to start off with the 2 las cannon shots, both hitting, wounding on 3s. 1 miss, 1 hit, so they're 4 up. Invuln save, 4 invuln save, will not make it, so d6 damage will be only 1 damage on from the Dreadnought, so that will take 1 down to 2 wounds. And then d6 shots from the flamer, 2 shots on 3s, on 5s, nothing, so there will be exactly 1 Hormagaunt left alive. As we move on to the final shooting, the captain and his Terminators. All the shots from the Terminators and the captain are going to go into this lone warrior. Try to tick up another in shooting to try to get us closer to overwhelming firepower and grind them down even harder to obtain for the Tyranids. So 4 shots from the captains to start us off. Will be wounding on 5s. Nothing there. And then finally the 20 shots from the Terminators into the 1 lone warrior as well. So 3, 4, and 5. And then this will be on 3s, rerolling 1s. Rerolling the 1 that I can see into a 2. So lots and lots of 2s here. Then wounding on 5s. Looks like we only got 1 wound, which will take a wound off of the warrior, but will otherwise leave him intact. So with that, we are officially done with the shooting phase. We will move on to the charge phase now. Looks like the charge phase is not going to go as well as the shooting phase. We only got one squad into combat. Thankfully, it was the assault squad into combat with the brain bugs, so hoping to take one or two of them out so that their psychic might is not enough to continue blasting away at the Marines. We did not get the chaplain in combat, and both the Terminator squad and the Terminator captain failed into the prime, and the Dreadnought was not able to reach the single Hormigaunt over on that no man's land objective. So, while we were able to remove a lot of the bodies from shooting, we will have to rely on this one assault to start cutting down in melee. After the assault squad finished all of their attacks, we're dealing with 11 wounds against the 4-up save of the zone throat. So we are going to hope for a lot of 4-ups for the Tyranids. Ooh, and a lot we did not get, so that is only 3 passes. So that's going to be 8 wounds taken, so that'll kill the one on 2 wounds left, kill a whole one, kill a whole one. So that will take 3 of the 5 of the Zoanthropes out of the squad. After all was said and done, the Zoanthropes were actually able to do a single wound onto one of the Assault Marines' back. But that is going to do it for the turn. The lone Termagant from that squad is currently in Synapse, so nothing to worry about there. The lone Hormigaunt could, in theory, stay on a 1, but he will not, so that will be him off of the board, bringing grind up to 2. And we will work on holding the line, and we will hope that we are able to continue to grind them down. At this point, I am going to ditch Overwhelming Firepower, just because I think we could hopefully try to get a little bit better draws in future turns as we go on to Tyranids turn 2. Turn 2 with the Tyranids, and we continue to look pretty well on scoring in secondaries. Only going up 7 in terms of primary, thanks to having 1 objective and it being a claimed objective. But after getting rid of a capture enemy outpost, we got Battlefield Supremacy, Storm Hostile Objective, and Extend Battle Lines, all of which I think we can very comfortably do in this turn. For command phase abilities, the Neurothrope gave the 3d6 casting to the 2 remaining Zoanthropes, who are going to stay in combat to blast the Assault Marines out. The Prime, probably on his last act of the game, gave his buff of reroll wounds to 1, wounds of 1 to the big Termagant squad. And we are ready to move on out. So we will go through movement phase and then come back to you at the start of Psychic. Here we are at the beginning of Psychic phase. So we have moved forward with the assets we have remaining and gotten the Raveners out on the table. This lone Termagant has advanced up and is going to do the action to claim this objective. So that is going to score me Storm Hostile objective, since I am objective secured and the land speeder is not. I'm also definitely going to get Extend Battle Lines, so even before Psychic, that is putting me up 10 points to 32. And as long as I continue to hold on to that objective, and my home field objective at the end of the turn, I'll get the full sweep of Battlefield Supremacy. So, definitely in terms of killing, it's the Ultramarines game to lose, but in terms of points, they have a lot of room to make up, or a lot of ground to make up on the Tyranids. We decided to stay still in this backfield objective with the Warrior and the Prime, just to try to slow down the Terminators, not give them an easy charge or an easy counter kill in melee. The 20-man squad of Termagants is going to continue to try to claim the midfield, while the Raveners back here have dropped 9 inches away from the tactical squad. Opportunistic advance played onto the Broodlord, so he is ready to soak up some Overwatch or assist the Raveners in taking the home field objective. That will also most likely deny hold the line, and we shall see if we can outscore or match 2 units killed and grind them down. Starting the psychic phase, we're going to go with the Zoanthropes into the assault squad that they are in. 3d6 plus 2, dropping the lowest, will give us an 8 up to a 10. So that's unfortunately not going to be a super smite, but it will be a total of 4, d3 plus 2, so 4 mortal wounds. So 1 to kill 1, kill another, and leave 1 on 1 wound remaining. That'll be their turn. Then the Zoanthrope is going to go, or the Neurothrope. Always get those 2 names mixed up, especially when they're standing next to each other. Just going to start off with, I'm going to start off with a smite myself, so a 6. Getting it with a 7, so 1 mortal wound. Taking off another one of the Marines. And seeing as I think it's the better choice, I'm going to go with Catalyst on a 6. Getting it, and I'll put Catalyst on this big squad in the middle to try to continue to keep them available for anything else. And then finally, the Broodlord's just going to attempt to smite with 7, not making it with 6, but not a big deal there. So, 3 Assault Marines dead in the Psychic, and Catalyst gone off. That's pretty good. So now we will start with the shooting phase. Now we are going to go to the Termagants to start the shooting phase. 17 shots from their flesh borers right in front of them to the tactical squad on 4s. And then 3s, re-rolling 1s. And what was that? 5 2s and only 1 1. That is going to be 4 at -1 AP. So that will be enough to kill exactly 1 more of the Marines, but overall not too much accomplished there. That's about the only big unit to fire. Now we have some scattered pieces of shooting. We're going to start off with the Venom Cannon from the Warrior. Going to go into the Terminator squad, try to take 1 or 2 of them down. So D3 shots. 1 shot on a 3 will miss. And then 5 shots from the Tyranid Prime's Devourer. I'm going to go across and try to take another one of the Marines down. 4 hits. And then 4 to wound. 2 wounds, no AP, and they're in the crater, so 2 up saves. Will, with a double 1, take another one of the Marines off the board in the center. That was a lot more effective than I thought it would be. We're going to go right on into the charge phase. We're going to start off with the Broodlord, declaring into the tactical squad. So I am going to spend a total of 3 CP, so 1 CP to Overwatch with the squad themselves, and 2 CP so that the Devastators as well will fire into the Broodlord, thanks to offensive or defensive focus. So I'm going to do all the shots off camera into the Broodlord, and we'll see if he is still standing or whether he makes it in. And the Overwatch was very much a disappointment in terms of the Ultramarines. Nothing hit other than one bolt gun shot onto the Broodlord, and it didn't even wound. So, with no CP spent, we were able to get the Broodlord and the 3 Raveners into combat with the Tactical Marines. The Termagants in the middle also were able to flood the center and try to start surrounding the tactical squad in the center. And that will do it for the charge phase. In the fight phase, we are going to get started with the squad back here, and I am going to start us off with the Broodlord. Starting off with Broodlord, 6 attacks into the tactical squad. We have 1 miss, so 5 hits. Strength 5, toughness 4, 3s re-rolling my wounds. So 1 to re-roll. So that is going to be 5 at an AP of 3. 6 up saves for the Marines will cause 5 of the squad to be wiped from that one Broodlord. Not going to interrupt with either of the tactical squads, as there's not likely much that's going to be done. We're going to go with the Raveners next, and I'm going to choose to use the Ravener Claws instead of the Scything Talons. And we will be hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s, since they are not equipped with any ranged weapons. So that'll get me 1 more hit. A fair number of 2s. And then we are looking at Strength 5 into Toughness 4. 3s to wound. 4 wounds at AP minus 2. Will save all but 1, so 1 damage will go through to the Marines. And surprisingly enough, the Termagants were actually able to take 1 more of the tactical squad out of the fight. So it is now just the Sergeant left. And we are going to slap back off camera with the Marines to see what we can do. And then come back to you at the end of turn 2 for the Tyranids. Here we are at the end of the turn, summarizing the Ultramarines fight phase and the morale phase as we end. We were actually able to deal 1 damage to the Broodlord thanks to the Sergeant. No damage going through to the Raveners, who, combined with the Broodlord, are preventing us from getting hold of the line. Ultramarines did grind them down, however, so that'll bring them up 5 points to 17. The Tyranids did get a full sweep of their secondaries again, bringing them up to 37 right now. And that will be it for turn 2. As we go into turn 3, we are going to be looking for what can we do to deal with the issues in the back, and how can we try to take back what we can in the future games and make up this score deficit for the Marines. As we begin turn 3 with the Ultramarines, we score a total of 12 on primary, as we have 1 objective that is claimed that we still control thanks to objective secured, and we control this objective in no man's land as well. Our secondaries are looking good. We did spend 1 to get rid of Hold the Line, since that one doesn't automatically go away if you don't get it. So we now need to capture enemy outposts, secure no man's land, and assassinate a character. All things I think we are ready and able to do for the Marines. 1 CP, bringing us down to 2, also spent on Wisdom of the Ancients for the Dreadnought to keep the center of the battlefield continuing to be effective, or as effective as possible. with that, we are going to go on to the movement phase as we move around in the board, trying to claim what is ours. Here we are after movement. We have moved on forward with the majority of our forces in the center to try to clear up this squad of termagants, and then perhaps the zone throats with the dreadnought, tactical marines, and the land speeder typhoon. On the home field objective, we have fallen back, trying to get what we can in terms of shooting from the Devastators and this land speeder tornado, who also has to play double duty of getting this termagant off of the objective. The chaplain got Litany of Hate off, so he is giving his aura, while the Terminator squad is moving up to reinforce the center, and the captain is moving off towards the side himself to take care of the Prime and Warrior. So that will be everything in terms of movement. We're going to start with shooting. The first thing that we are going to shoot is the land speeder tornado. Its assault cannon is going to go into the one remaining termagant, while the heavy bolter will try to take some wounds off of the Broodlord. The termagant was taken off of the No Man's Land objective, while we have the Broodlord down 2 wounds thanks to the heavy bolter going through with one of its shots. Next up, we're going to try to continue pumping everything that we've got from the Devastators into the squads back here. So we are going to fire everything into the Broodlord, including the las cannons, which will get the signum. So red die is going to be hitting on a 2, blue on a 3. So that'll be both hits, and then 3s to wound. That'll be 1 going through. We'll take a reroll there, because I think we're really going to need it. That'll be 2 wounds against his 4 up invuln. We'll make 1 fail 1. And I am going to spend a reroll here for the Nids. Not making it, so 2d6 damage to the Broodlord. 11 damage, that will take him off in a heartbeat and score us assassination. Next up will be the Dreadnought. His Flamer is going to go into the Termagants and his twin Las into the Raveners back here. Number of shots from the Flamer will be 4. Wounding on 3s. And on 4s, thanks to being in cover for the crater. So we will take 2 of them off. And then 2 las cannon shots, hitting twice, wounding once to go straight on through to be 6 damage. That will take 1 of the Raveners out of the fight. And we are going to move on to the land speeder typhoon, firing everything that's got into the termagants in the middle. Starting with the missile launchers on 3s, and then wounding on 3s. So that looks like it's going to be 5 wounds at a 4-up save, thanks to being in cover for the crater. So that will be 2 more of the gaunts taken out. Now with our heavy bolter shots. And then 2 wounds on 5s. Make both of those. So next up will be the squad of Marines, firing everything that they've got into the termagants. Starting off with the missile launcher, who, let's see, 3, 6, 9, still has blast. So that'll be 6 shots from the missile launcher. And he did stay still. Rerolling thanks to Wisdom of the Ancients. On 3s, dropping my die. Then on 4s, make 1, fail 1 for the gaunts. So that will be another Termagant gone. And then we will do the bolt weapons and the plasma gun and get back to you after that unit is done shooting. 6 of the Termagants are still on the field after the shooting from the Tactical Marines. Next up, the only other squads are the Terminators and the Terminator Captain. All of their Stormbolter shots are going to try to finish off this lone warrior, and also do the pistols from the rest of the Assault Squad in their ongoing combat off camera. The pistols from the Assault Squad were able to finish off the Zoanthrope on 1 wounds, and the combined mass of firearms from the Captain and his squad were able to wipe out the warrior. That leaves us with the charge phase to do next. We are going to have the Chaplain go in first to support the Assault Squad in their ongoing combat against the Zoanthrope. The 5 makes it in with ease. The Terminator Captain is going to go in against the Prime. On an 8 will make it in. And then the Terminators will also try to come into combat with the Zoanthrope. On a 6, I don't think we'll make it, but we do not necessarily need them in that combat. I think the Chaplain and the Assault Squad has that in hand. In the fight phase, we are going to get started with the Burning Blade, Imperium Sword, Terminator Captain going into the Tyranid Prime. So 6 attacks on 2s. And then this is Strength 8 after all is said and done. So it is toughness 5, so 3s to wound, 4 going right on through to destroy the Prime, and that will be the enemy outpost captured. And then we will move on to fighting with the Chaplain, and then the ongoing combat between the Assault Squad and the Zoanthrope. And between the Captain and the Chaplain, we have removed both of our threats. We also killed the Termagants out of Synapse, and they rolled abysmally on their morale, so exactly 1 of them is left on the table. We scored all of our primaries, bringing the Ultramarines up to a score of 44 to what would be 42 if we continued on to the Tyranids turn 3, but with 2 Raveners, 1 Termagant, and a Neurothrope left on the table, pulling the secondaries of No Prisoners, Secure No Man's Land, and Investigate Site. I think it's pretty clear that the Sons of Gilman were able to take this battlefield today. So with that, that is a victory for the Imperial forces and the Sons of Gilman. So hope everybody enjoyed the battle report, a kind of a throwback with all Firstborn against a very horde-focused army of Tyranids. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you like the content and if you like the channel. Please make sure that you're staying tuned for future uploads, and I will see everybody on the next battlefield of the 41st millennia.